Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Elevating Your Life. We are going to get elevated today. We are just going to open our minds and feel so good when we are finished today. I have with us today Sue Schneider, Ph.D. She is a medical anthropologist, integrative health coach, and certified mindfulness instructor. She has been teaching mindfulness meditation to students of all ages in university and community settings for over a decade. She currently leads community health and wellness initiatives as an extension professor and state health specialist at Colorado State University and has an integrative health coaching practice in Fort Collins, Colorado, where she lives with her husband, son, and 2 dogs. I love it. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Paula. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
Oh, and I'm so thrilled to have you join us. And we are going to be discussing today quite a bit about her most recent book, Meeting the Moment with Kindness. It's a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it, Sue. Just fantastic.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Welcome. Tell us, as an anthropologist, and you're trained to observe and document other cultures and their practices, what brought you to your involvement and relationship with mindfulness? And tell us what brought you into that and kind of triggered you to create this great book.
Yeah, I mean, there are actually multiple threads that did, just because I have always been a seeker in my entire life. And so seeking out an understanding of other cultures, how they do health and healing around the globe, got me really curious about how do you do this for yourself, not just as an observer of other cultures, but how do we actually bring practices to life that resonate for us? And I was actually lucky enough when I was a young budding anthropologist, and I tell the story in this book, and I was spending a year in Mexico as a Fulbright scholar doing my doctoral research. I was observing women health promoters and the groups that they were forming in community centers. And it just so happened that one of the health promoters had invited a woman, an American, who was teaching mindfulness meditation. She'd invited her into the community center that I was working in and studying with these women for a week-long mindfulness meditation retreat, which was my introduction. I ended up spending a week learning how to calm the mind, how to quiet the mind, how to focus on the breath, and how to be in community, really bringing observations inside. This sounds kind of like a contradiction, to be in community and yet be looking inside, but this is a very traditional practice where we actually practice mindfulness meditation together in a shared space and create kind of a collective field of energy. It's a beautiful thing. This week really taught me so much back, way back when I had a lot of anxiety that I was struggling with, and I really didn't know how to quiet my mind and what techniques and tools might be helpful to me. So it just so happens that in doing my anthropological research, I was able to have an experience that brought me really into a deep connection with myself in a way I had never been, and allowed me to touch into something unique, this sense of inner peace, even if it was briefly, that I had never really understood. And so I actually continued to bring my curiosity. What is this? What is mindfulness all about? What are these ancient practices? How do people apply them? And I ended up, of course, becoming a practitioner myself. And I have been practicing and studying and teaching for 2 decades. I've been teaching for 1 decade, but I've been practicing deeply for 2 decades. And really it got spurred by that experience in 2003. So that's kind of where it started for me. But over the years of just having the experience of connecting with people around some of these practices, the attitudes of mindfulness that we bring into our life, as I was teaching and I started developing online courses, it just felt really important to me to really simplify what this is, and really make sure that this became as accessible as possible. There are a lot of mindfulness books out there and a lot of classes and trainings, but in my experience, I just didn't feel like there was the one piece that the beginner could pick up, the person that had some practice could pick up, and really be able to integrate it into their lives. And my real goal is to make sure people understood the value of everyday mindfulness, not just when you can go on a retreat, which most people just can't spend a week or even 3 days, but how do we integrate this into our everyday lives? I feel like that's really important.
So what would you say are some of the first steps we can take to bring that mindfulness into our everyday doing, our everyday, getting on with life? What are some of the best steps for that?
Yeah, and I walk through these steps actually in the book, and the first step we have to take, which is the toughest one to take, is learning how to pause. Learning how to pause so that we can check in and become aware, bring this awareness into our busy minds, bring our awareness into our bodies, because we are so not aware of our adrenaline, that we're often on fight or flight, that we're operating out of some kind of like energy that's rising through our bodies. And all of this is fine and good because we need it to, stay focused on what it is we need to get done. But the challenge is that we lose track of what we're doing. And it's kind of like we're just driving down the highway of life without any recognition of where we are or even where we want to go. So that first step of pausing and attuning is so critical. And there are so many ways we can do this. There are apps that we can use. There are timers we can use. We can use our lunch break even as a moment of pause and recognition. Taking a walk, noticing our feet touch the ground when we walk, really getting grounded or centered, or sitting and taking a few deep breaths. So I would just say, unless we can become comfortable with taking pauses in our life, and that's a really difficult thing to do for many of us who are just on overdrive. So many things can come out of that pause. From there, we learn to touch into the breath, to touch into the busy mind, to touch into the body, these foundations of mindfulness that we can then really cultivate over time.
Yeah, in your book, you talk about the mindful stop.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And that is taking that pause, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a wonderful acronym. It stands for actually stopping what we're doing, like being really intentional about stopping. It's about, the T stands for take a breath, because the breath actually is the gateway right into our body. It is such a natural tool for us. And if just you listening to me talking about taking a deep diaphragmatic breath, I promise you that is actually calming your nervous system just by even thinking about it. So taking a breath is your second step. And then the O is about observing, and observing within your body. What are you feeling in this present moment? That's a really grounding experience, to just notice, where are you feeling things? What's coming up for you? And just taking stock. And then that P is actually then the next step of choice. Do you proceed in the direction you were going before? Perhaps you were moving really quickly and not thinking or being mindful. Or might you proceed in a different kind of way and doing something that might support what you've discovered in the O and the observing of the body? So it's a beautiful acronym that takes you through the steps that really empowers you to make wise decisions about how you want to be in just these everyday moments.
Yes. And those everyday moments, I believe if I slow down and I just become aware and observing, oh my gosh, and it can be something as simple as this morning when I was heading to my office and I got in my car and I see a blue jay, hop in front of me. Well, good morning, blue jay. And I sit there a moment watching the blue jay.
Yeah,
Put a smile on my face and, you
right.
know, yeah.
How many of those moments do we miss because we're not paying attention?
Mhm.
We're not
Exactly. Yeah.
and on the flip side, so that's a moment of accessing joy and accessing connection. And then on the flip side of that, if you observe tension or sadness or anxiety, you all of a sudden have the chance to open up space for what's happening within you. And sometimes what that leads you to can be a moment of self-care or self-compassion, which can be equally powerful to enjoying a moment of beauty. You can enjoy a moment of rest by just giving yourself some space and giving yourself a little bit of kindness, because sometimes we're just tense like this in a ball and we are not recognizing that.
Yeah.
So those intentional moments can be so incredibly powerful.
Yes. And you mentioned the two wings of mindfulness, awareness and compassion. And yeah, and how they do complement each other. And they do, work the two together, would you say?
Yeah, right. I mean, and awareness is so important because we have to really be tuned in. We have to know what's going on. But if we tune in without compassion, it's just devoid of care. We could end up spinning out into the judgments or whatever it is, the storylines that we tell ourselves. And if we only have the compassion side without awareness, then we're just not really fully present. And so and we call it the two wings. It's like the two wings of the birds that complement each other and balance each other when we're in flight. So I think that's a beautiful way to think about mindfulness. Am I bringing awareness into this very moment? Can I bring kindness to whatever it is that I find? Really complementary.
I love that. I love that. And so then how would you say the power of gratitude comes into play?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, how much, and this goes back to how much do we miss? If we are not present, we are not able to recognize whatever preciousness comes up in the moment. And I guess it's kind of like you could think about even a simple act of drinking a cup of hot tea. And I share this a little example in the book, but this is such a somatic experience. You can feel the heat of the mug, you can smell the aroma of the tea, right? You can, taste whatever deliciousness is coming out of the flavors of the tea. And because you are so present in that moment, your heart can feel full. You can actually savor that moment with gratitude, and you can name it. You can actually bring it into your mind and say, I am just grateful for having a moment, a pause, access to this tea, or all of the people who have made this tea possible for me. And the power of gratitude just cannot be underestimated. Gratitude cultivates so much joy in our life because it connects us. It connects us to the moment. It connects us by heart to other people when we can feel appreciation, or, this is all about connection. And I think we're living in times where, social isolation is a huge challenge. And some of our difficulties, our mental struggles are because we feel so alone. And that there are direct linkages between the awareness and then the gratitude that can come out of just being aware and present, and the connection that then we can feel with first ourselves. I mean, that's the gateway, but then to others, to other beings, to the 4 dogs you have in your house and the 2 dogs I have in my house. And that gratitude, it keeps us present, and presence keeps us grateful. And so it's really maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this again is, where do you start? And you can just start with slowing down. That's really the key.
And would you say that, taking a moment, doing the mindful stop, and then even thinking of one thing in your life that you're grateful for, that can kind of set the tone for the rest of your day.
It can not only set the tone for the rest of your day, but there's a lot of research out there about how gratitude or recognizing good things in our lives actually can help us rewire our brains. And this is called, this is called positive neuroplasticity, because we understand that our brains are naturally tuned to keep us safe, right? And so we may have a negativity bias that we've inherited, evolutionarily speaking. And gratitude is actually one way that we can work to undo the natural negativity bias in our brains. And the more we move our brains towards gratitude, simplicity, kindness, calm, compassion, things like that, those inner resources, the more we intentionally move our minds in that direction, we are literally rewiring our brains. And I teach a lot of mindfulness to older adults, and I get this question all the time. Do you really, 83-year-old raises his hand. Do you really feel like I could change my brain at this point in my life? And I say definitively yes, because the research tells us we can change our brains at any point in our lives. And there are some really great practices out there for doing that. And Rick Hanson, who's a neuropsychologist, offers a lot of really great work around this. But the kind of thing where we can hold a thought that is positive, that is a thought of gratitude, and we don't hold it in our minds, we actually hold it in our bodies. Because this is where the change is going to happen, starting in our bodies, that is connected to our minds. We hold it in our hearts, we feel it in our cells. We literally lie in our beds and just think about 3 good things at the end of the night, and we hold it and savor it. He calls it savoring and soaking. We literally are soaking our bodies with it. And when we do this kind of practice of 3 good things, or any other, practices throughout the day, this is the kind of work, these are the kinds of practices that actually create long-term change for us. They're not small. It's not a small practice. It's not a small thing. If you think about what kind of life changes that can make.
So are these changes something like, what thoughts are going to come to us? What's going to be the first thing that pops in my head? Positive, negative.
Right. It opens up space to recognize, even when the negative comes up, that we can name that and discern. We can have some more wise discernment. Like, maybe I don't need to wash myself over with that negative thought. And then we can be more deliberate about, well, let me just shift gears a little bit and maybe reframe a little bit, or open up some more space for gratitude. The more, and this goes really back to the fundamentals of mindfulness, but the more we can bring awareness to what's arising, we notice what's arising, we name, oftentimes we can just give it a little name, like, oh, there's judgment, or, oh, there's fear. And we don't push that kind of stuff away, because when we push that stuff away, it just got, it gets bigger. But we can name it and almost befriend it in a way, if we can, like, okay, there it is, it's back, right? We can learn to let go when we are more skillfully open and working with the thoughts that are coming up. And if we can learn to let go, and we can learn to replace with something different, the more we do that, it's just like going to a gym and working out. We're building a muscle. We're building a mindfulness muscle. And yes, this is about reframing and really changing the way our brain operates. It gets easier and easier over time.
So would you say we're basically acknowledging this, but not giving it the focus?
No.
Giving our mind a focus in a different area.
Absolutely. And I mean, we all know what it's like to just immerse ourselves in the stress and the struggle and the tension. I mean, we know what it's like to let that take over us, and it happens. But when we can bring awareness to those thoughts, and we notice, oh, these sensations, this adrenaline, or this, discomfort is arising in the body, just really being able to make a choice. And I mean, again, I can't emphasize enough that it doesn't help us to push this stuff away and ignore it. It just gets bigger in our life. And so opening that space and really acknowledging this is what's going on, and I don't have to get hooked. I don't have to get caught. Or we begin to notice, and these are the habits of mind. Oh my gosh, the same story is repeating itself again and again in different kinds of ways. And so we can learn when we are really intentional and we're sitting and noticing there's that story again. What's going on? Hey, what's up? I know you. And I don't really want to entertain you today. I know you're there and it's okay, but I can now move on and find something that may support me in a different kind of way.
Love it. I love it. And would you say, because I know you have a son who's had perspectives on mindfulness, and so what would you say about mindfulness and how what's in the book and how we can share that with family members or children, or how is mindfulness? It's a great thing to share with our family members and children, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And I would start by saying that we adults need to practice ourselves, because the best thing we can do is role model for our kids. What is it like to learn how to get centered? So there are going to be things that come up. We're going to come home from work in a terrible mood, or there are going to be testy issues that come up in a family conversation or on the phone. And the question is, do I know how to get centered and grounded? Do I know what to do with all of the stress in my life? Can I demonstrate to, in my case, and he's 13 now, but can I demonstrate to him that I don't have to get caught in the cycles and the loops of stress and difficulty and take it out on people or take it out on myself? But can he see me say, you know what, I had a difficult day. Give me about 10 minutes. I'm going to go center, which he knows exactly what I mean by that, and come back and be present. And presence, parents, adults being present for their loved ones, their families, or if we're caregiving our parents, the power of presence is just beyond measure. So the first thing I just want to emphasize is it's on us, it's on us to work with some of these tools and find a way to role model what it's like to be mindful, to be present. But the second thing we can always do when we feel like we know how to get centered and we know how to get stable and grounded is share in really small ways we can do this with our kids. In fact, Aiden was the one, my son suggested before we eat that we should all take 3 deep breaths at the dinner table.
I love it.
And we've been doing that for probably 2 years now. And he understood very well that we will appreciate this meal and each other and the time we have together more if we come at this from a grounded and centered place, right? And so he's had enough experiences with mindfulness to understand what taking 3 deep breaths can happen.
Oh, Sue, that is so awesome. Well, we have just a couple minutes left in the show. Please tell everyone where they can get a copy of Meeting the Moment with Kindness, and any last words you want to share with everybody today.
Yeah, well, that copy can be found anywhere the books are sold, whether it's Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Bookshop Online, and it's put out by Mantra Books, so you can visit Mantra Books as well. My website for even more information, and I've got some audio meditations that people can use if they want to try those out. Yeah, some blog articles and thoughts. That is meetingthemoment.org. That's my website. You can check that out. And just some last thoughts. I mean, I think that we don't have to approach mindfulness as something on our to-do list. It is something that we can incorporate into our everydays. It can be as simple is practicing something like, patience. Can I step back and just let something unfold? Or can I practice acceptance instead of fighting or struggling with a lot of different things? Can I just let something be and see what that feels like? Can I bring that awareness into a difficult moment? Can I have enough awareness to kind of slow things down? Can I bring a pause to that moment first and then bring that awareness? And then I always want to really emphasize the power of self-compassion. And unless we slow down with awareness, we can't get there. So making sure that we just give ourselves a mindful moment. I always put my hand on my heart. You've seen this probably 5 times already, and just check in. What's there? What's going on? And bringing some care. So don't wait for the perfect moment to happen for mindfulness. Just bring a little bit of presence and awareness and compassion into the moment yourself.
Oh, Sue, thank you so much. This is just so fantastic. Oh, so much information and inspiration that you share and getting this word out. I am just so grateful for all the lives you're making a difference in and being the beautiful energy that you are. Wow.
Thank you, Paula. I appreciate it. I so appreciate the work that you are doing as well.
Thank you. And one quick question before we go. Do you see yourself writing another book?
I do.
You do? Oh.
I am so enjoying a break right now because I am bringing myself back into balance, but I am really interested in going deeper into the power of mindfulness in our applied world. How do we apply mindfulness in this world and all of the difficulties? I don't think we need to stretch our brains too hard to understand the value of that, but that will definitely.
Well, I will be looking forward to talking about that and reading that. Oh, you are just fantastic, Sue. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us today. Love, hugs, and blessings. Sue, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Paula. I really appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.